What happened was.
Hey friends, it's so nice to see you. It's today, the time is now. You are here and the weather is outside your window.
He's a cabaret star, a celebrity chef, an author, and so much more. Please welcome today's guest, Daniel Isengart.
Hello. Hi, Zachary. Good to see you.
Good to see you. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
It's an honor to have you on. And, we've been following each other for quite a while and finally bumped into each other fairly recently at the American Lyric Theater concert in, when was that? Early fall, perhaps. Yeah.
I don't have a sense of time anymore. Because everything is long and short at the same time.
Yeah.
So I have no idea, but I'm glad that we finally got to meet and hang out, and it's very exciting.
Me too, absolutely.
Since I saw you in Akhenaten, you were fantastic in this role.
Well, thank you.
I mean, your voice just boomed into that room. You just owned it. It was really fantastic. Great. And I love this opera, so I was so excited to see it. And
fabulous piece. It's been such an honor to do it. And soon it will be the opera that I've done more than any other opera, which is kind of outrageous.
Because you're doing it again. You're bringing it back very soon, right?
Just again and again and again. So yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I just got a note this morning about a 7th production. So
it's amazing.
Yeah,
good for you. Congratulations.
Thank you. Well, it's just funny because as you know, it's a speaking role and has really driven my opera career forward in a strange way.
Well, because as I said, you owned this moment and you are a stage animal, and so people who know. Right? So they're like, and you are a great singer too, so hey,
thank you.
That's that.
I'm blushing because these words coming from you, an artist of your caliber, that means a lot. So thank you very much.
No, I'm in a completely different world,
come on. Yeah, your stories of being a cabaret artist, that's like the what I dreamed of doing. You did everything that I wanted to do in a time
the world's wide open and waiting for you out there, so go for it. It's never too late. Cabaret is one of the things you can do until you die.
And I will. But something that
I'm retired. I'm not doing it anymore. So
I'm planning on bringing you out of retirement. So don't get too comfortable.
I'm never saying never, but we'll talk.
But something that we've spoken about, I think we're on the same page about a lot of our tastes and styles and visions and the way we see the world as artists. But something we've spoken about is how in this digital age, everything is kind of readily accessible, and it's taking away, in a sense, from that special thing where there was a time and a place that only the people who were there could experience it. And it was a special moment in time. And that is very rare now. And I think we need to carve out those moments now, so we can have those.
Right. I mean, I think that's the calling of the artist is to address the immediate present, and it is really only immediate if it's happening in a specific time and place where we can all breathe the same air together. For us as performers, especially. On the other hand, I think that the digital revolution has also brought a lot of great things. I mean, look at us. We are in 2 different places right now. We can talk and people can watch this much later at the tip of one button, which is amazing. So I think that's great. And I think that we're all beginning to learn to use the medium much better. I think that's just even in these 2 years, we've seen a huge development. And it's been very experimental, and you've created yet another platform for yourself with what you're doing. So we're making the best of it, but we have to always go back to live theater.
Yeah, I agree.
We have to.
Yeah.
We have to. And it's happening.
It is.
It's finally.
And these new ways of connecting can be companion pieces to the live arts.
They need to lead to it. That's what I always said. It cannot replace it. It has to be the way to get more attention, to lead people back into it. I just wrote something today because I had a flashback of my memory of my first ensemble piece I ever saw. And it was actually a musical, ironically, but it was in Paris, and it was an American musical that I experienced in its French incarnation, and it was Godspell.
Wow.
And I was 6 years old. And it was a big hit in Paris, and it was a fantastic production. And we had the record. So that was part of my childhood soundtrack. And I danced to it and I sang along with it for years.
Wow.
So, I used this to really inspire, tell people, if you have kids, take them to the theater, take them to the opera, take them to the musical, and don't tell them anything. Don't explain anything. Don't lecture them. Just let them go and experience it on their own account. And afterwards, then they can ask questions, but just throw them right in there, because children, they know how to absorb these things. I didn't understand what this was about. I didn't even understand all the words, as a 6-year-old wouldn't. It didn't matter. It's all about energy.
Yeah.
And that's how you plant the seed, so yeah.
It's magic in the air, and yeah, absolutely it draws people in. That's beautiful.
I have all these memory flashes coming back, and it's very detailed. I mean, I remember going on stage at intermission, this was Paris, very loose. It was very hot. They only had tepid white wine to drink, which I drank, didn't like it. I was 6, so, sure. And I actually don't like wine even now, but that's a different story. But, and I talked to the performers. I mean, why not,
Yeah. Wow. Do you remember any of Godspell in French?
Oh, I have the whole record in my head, everything.
Wow.
Actually, since it brought back the memory, and I checked and I found a few excerpts on YouTube, I can't even sleep anymore because the music is in my head constantly.
Wow.
And it was very different from the Broadway version. It was much more jazzy. And I'll send you some links. It was fantastic. It was really good. It was so well done. It was very engaging, perfect for a 6-year-old.
Yeah.
I mean, they're crucifying him, but at the end, they carried him back through the audience on the cross. And it was this jubilant, exuberant, colorful, mad, joyful party.
Yeah.
So it was perfect.
It was a fabulous show.
For me, the Godspell was an exception, because in my family, it was all classical music.
Oh.
And so there was, and there wasn't even much opera. I had to find all that out on my own later. Yeah. Because my father, I mean, we all played instruments. I played the piano. And so my mother was all about Baroque music, and my father about romantic music, Oh. So, and then, I had to go somewhere else. So I became a cabaret entertainer. That's the one thing that drew me in,
Naturally. I love that. Yeah.
It was kind of natural. Yeah.
In a sense, yeah. I remember.
I did my first cabaret show at 13. I was 13. I put on a cabaret show in high school. So somehow, yeah.
So this is a lifelong,
Yes.
You've been doing this forever. But here's the interesting thing. One of many interesting things is you are a cabaret artist. You're a writer. You're like a celebrity pastry chef. You're, you're a coach. You're a teacher. You're everything. And it's such an incredible life you are living. And of course, now you're really focusing in on coaching opera singers and performers, and talking about the practice of performance, which is something that we don't always talk about in school. And it can be.
That's what I find out, because I'm self-taught, so I never went through an academic training of any kind, really. I did a detour into interior design and architecture, and realized, no, I have to do something that's music related, because on a character level, on a temperamental level, I really am a dancer.
Yeah.
But I started serious dance training very late, so that wasn't really going to happen, and that's fine, But I realized that what I am now able to teach and impart on my students is mostly from my own practice and from very close observation, because I've seen a lot in all these years.
Yeah.
And I'm surprised that things that are completely natural to me don't seem to be part of the process in their studies at all. Sure. There are huge gaps for me. I focus on body language and the expressiveness of the body connected to the material. And I find that classical singers, even though I know they all have some acting training as part of it, but they also tell me no one really seems to have imparted on us the very specific language and the analysis of what the body really expresses at any given moment. And that's something I'm fascinated with, pantomime and we know how singers in concert, that's really my field, is the concert stage, because you don't have a director for the concert stage. other than in opera. So on the concert stage, they just think, oh, I'm just going to sing, and it doesn't work that way. And then we have these strange movements that don't mean anything. And so that's what I'm trying to cut out and really connect the body to the character.
Yeah.
And it makes the performing easier because it gives them a purpose in every single moment, and they don't have to second guess themselves. So love doing that. And it's picking up now, so it's good.
It's very important. Well, you share very generously of yourself, and I love your Instagram posts where you analyze songs, and it gives me a taste of your work with singers. Can we look at one of those now?
I'd love to. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, sure.
So this is my favorite one, which is Ladies Who Lunch, of course, from Sondheim's Company.
It all starts rather innocuously with a simple announcement. I'd like to propose a toast. But the music announces that we're in for a ride. Damn! It sounds like we're in for some very targeted mudslinging. Pow! Pow! Remember, if you want to sling mud, you have to stand in it. Here's to the ladies who lunch. The ladies who lunch are ladies who are well taken care of, who don't work, and who have plenty of free time, and who have banded together. Everybody laugh, she says. I'm just kidding, I'm gonna keep it light. No, she's not kidding. She's not kidding at all. She's been drinking to have the courage to let it all out, because this has been on her mind for a long time. And she wants everybody's attention. Lounging in their caftans and planning a brunch, she says. Now, the caftan is a comfortable piece of clothing that you wear at home when you're being the queen at home, when you don't need to represent. No tight dress, no corset, just you lounging on the phone, planning a brunch on your own behalf. The ladies who lunch are planning a brunch, because it's all about making sure that next meal is coming and that you have another occasion to celebrate yourself, because there's no one else in the world but yourself. Off to the gym, then to a fitting claiming their fat. This is how they signalize that they are taking care of themselves, that they are self-aware, and by claiming their fat, which they're not, they're probably anorexic or bulimic, they are preempting the criticism that they don't look as good as they should. And looking grim because they've been sitting, which means they've been waiting and have not been served immediately, which they don't like and which makes them sulk. Choosing a hat. Does anyone still wear a hat? Oh, yes, they do. And why are people wearing a hat? Because a hat makes you stand out, and it makes you tall, taller than the rest, so you can lord it over. And when you have a whole army of them wearing a hat, then that is the army that you are facing by yourself, just like at the end of a chorus line. That's hard to swallow, isn't it? To stand alone against a whole army who stands tall over you. That's why you better drink to that. Here's to the girls who stay smart. Not the girls who are smart, but the girls who project the image that they continuously educate themselves. Aren't they a gas? Aren't they bloated? Rushing to their classes in optical art. Optical art, of course, all superficial, all surface. Wishing it would pass, yes, because they're not really interested. Another long, exhausting day. Of course, they have nothing serious to do. But they like to project the image that they're very, very busy. Another $1,000, that's just pocket money for them because they are well taken care of. A matinee, a pinter play. Yes, of course, culture is important and they want to show that they are interested in culture. but let's get it over with as fast as possible and as early in the day as possible, which is why the matinee is perfect, because by the evening their desires may have become a bit more carnal. Perhaps a piece of Mahler's? Now, Elaine Stritch asked Stephen Sondheim, what kind of a cake is that? And he was horrified because she made clear that she did not understand that he meant a music piece by Gustav Mahler. And yet, she actually kind of got it right. Because if you throw off Mahler by calling it a piece of Mahler's, then you might as well have a piece of cake, because a symphony by Gustav Mahler is no piece of cake. And if you actually paid attention to it, it might tell you something about yourself. And you might find out that you are not the most important thing in the world, that it's not about you. But if you throw it off, yeah, that's a piece of Mahler's, then it might as well be a piece of cake. I'll drink to that. And one for Mahler, as if he needed that. The girls who play wife are next. It's not about them being wives, it's about them playing wives. They project the image of perfection, keeping house, but in the background they are clutching not just the copy of the magazine Life, but they're clutching to the hope that they are doing everything right. And the fact is that they are living a copy of Life. They are living the catalog Life. And since they have no opinion of their own, they need the magazine to tell them how to keep up to date, to keep in touch. The ones who follow the rules are next, the ones who don't dare to overstep their boundaries. They meet themselves at the schools, perhaps to pick up their children and to make sure that everybody sees that they are deeply caring mothers when they really only take care of themselves. Too busy to know that they're fools. Now, isn't that an enviable state? If you're so busy that you never have to actually look in the mirror and look past the surface of yourself, that is an enviable state. Maybe she does envy them. She may think that they're fools, but they don't think so. They think that they are perfect just the way they are. Aren't they a gem? Yes, many people actually look at them as if they are shining diamonds because they're beautiful, they represent, and they play by the rules. I'll drink to them, she says, embittered, and then she says, let's all drink to them, asking everyone, aren't you with me? Aren't you with me in my complete criticism of them? No. And there comes the chord, boom, which is like a slap in the face. She realizes that she is alone. And here's to the girls who just watch. The girls who don't dare to actually step forward, become truly involved, and live a full life that is honest. Aren't they the best? When they get depressed, it's a bottle of scotch plus a little jest. Now those ladies hit the bottle when suddenly they are facing reality, and then they make a joke about it. Doesn't it sound familiar? Who's been joking? Who's been drinking here? For a long time. Another chance to disapprove? Another brilliant zinger? She's been slinging zingers left and right and disapproves of everyone. Another reason not to move? Too scared to change your life and take your life into your own hands? Another vodka stinger? And here comes a big outcry. Ah! Why does it come right here? Because she realized that she flipped it and she started to speak about herself right there in public. And that's where this outcry comes. No, 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 no. She has to shake it off and quickly get that image away. This was about an indictment of the other, not of herself, but too late, she overstepped it. Here's to the girls on the go, the girls who never stop. Everybody try. eyes. Look into their eyes. There's that nervous flicker in the eye. The fear of death. The fear of becoming meaningless. The fear, am I getting enough out of life before I die? And most importantly, am I outliving the others? Everybody dies, but she wants to outlive everyone. And there is that nervous flicker of looking at those who are younger than her. Because this is a song about midlife crisis. A toast to that invincible bunch, the dinosaurs surviving the crunch. Yes, they are invincible and they will survive her. Because they are a group that continuously replenishes itself. An army that she stands against completely alone. Let's hear it for the ladies who lunch. Everybody, rise, she says. Everybody, come to my side. Let's band up against them so I can feel that I am not part of them. And nobody rises, which is why she keeps on repeating it. And the more she repeats it, the more it becomes clear that she's completely isolated, that the life she has just denounced and described may be the only option for her if she wants to live as long as a dinosaur. And then at the end, the last desperate outcry, does anybody hear me? Is there anyone with me? No. Boom! That's the sound of landing with a thud. She sits down. She has made her last desperate attempt to reach out. And she has failed.
Just like you, when COVID happened, I had to find new creative outlets. And so this has become one of mine, that I started to make video analysis. And I have like 3 dozen of aria analysis and some that are more specifically about the craft. And I just make them and it's fun. And so it keeps us engaged, right? I mean, it's just like with you, you're doing this podcast. I mean, well, I don't even know. You're doing so many things. I mean, you are like the hardest working man I know. I don't even know. You're like, oh, I'm doing this production and I'm flying over there to doing that. And I have an audition here.
Thank
Amazing.
you.
Bravo.
I'm a madman. But you know, that's how it is.
Well, you must love it.
I do.
And you're made for it. So.
I do, you know. Yeah. My mom often reminds me that I've been this way since I was a kid, that I was always, you know, doing a million things at once. So
well, maybe we have that in common to some degree. As you said earlier, I do many different things, but you could also think of it that you just keep throwing stuff at the wall and whatever sticks, then that's, you know, this. But maybe I also need it that way.
Yeah.
Somehow, because I don't like too much of a routine. Because I mean, you know, that's why we moved to New York. I mean, I moved to New York because I wanted to meet inspiring people and hopefully get a chance to collaborate with them, or at least meet them. And that has happened. So in a way, hey, it's worked out, you know.
Absolutely. And you've had just so many incredible experiences. You were telling me recently about the museum that you ran in your home and, you know, getting a New York Times write-up and getting in trouble with your landlord. It's just like the most romantic bohemian stories.
Those were the wild years, in a way. I mean,
that's what I'm lucky. I want to be there.
Yeah, well, it's documented, but it's not around anymore. As you can see, this is a very banal bourgeois apartment now, but at some point, this was all full of art installations. And this is, of course, the work of my life partner that I married a few years ago, but we've been together for 20 years, Philip Notre Dame, who's an artist. And he's a conceptual artist. So the project was called the Homeless Museum of Art. And it was a pastiche of the Contemporary Art Museum. So we had openings at home, and I was in character as Madame Butterfly, the director of development. And people would come and I would put them on a scale to weigh them so we could figure out how much they had to pay to come in. So everything was a statement about what's happening in the increasingly commercial art world or the museum world. And it was a performance element, and it was an audio tour in a cafe. And we did that for a few years until the Times wrote about it and the landlord found out. And then we had to sort of shut it down because you can't run a museum in your apartment. And we said, well, it's not really a museum. It's a spoof of a museum. But all right, we did it long enough. It was fine. And then he wrote a book about it. So,
wow. Yeah. That's just incredible. I would have loved to have experienced that.
It was crazy. I mean, we sometimes look at each other and say, we really did that, right?
Yes.
So, but as I said, the wild years. So that's great. You know, I'm lucky that I've been able to experience that. There's a level when you don't question yourself anymore, and every idea you just instantly make it come real.
Yes.
That's the creative process where you don't put yourself into boundaries and say, let's just do it.
Yes.
And it felt so free.
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
that's a really important point, because we've both been in the nonprofits, arts and the creative world for quite a long time, and there are different ways of doing things. And I found sometimes when I have an idea, someone says, okay, that's wonderful, so develop a 5-year plan and then you'll have to raise this amount of money and blah blah blah, and I'm just like, but I just want to do it tomorrow. So then I do, with a piece of duct tape and cardboard, and it's fun and great, and it
whatever you have. I mean, I always joke and say low budget. No, I operate on a no budget.
No, or less.
Yeah, definitely less than low.
Yeah.
And I mean, and we know how much money we often have to put into our projects if it's our own project.
Of course. Yeah.
And I can tell you, in the cabaret world, it's rough.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've been listening to a lot of interviews with comedians lately, because I would say that comedians and singers and musicians, which is of course intertwined, although singers and musicians are not exactly the same animal. Those three are my favorite animals that I really admire. And maybe comedians are really on top, because comedians are the ones who are more in the presence than anybody else for me. And they walk a very, very thin line. Anyway, so I've been listening to a lot of comedians, and now I lost why I brought them up. No, it's not coming back. It's fine. Anyway, yay, comedians.
Comedians, comedy. Very important to laugh.
Oh, no, I remember. So the comedians, the stand-up comedians, they just get to the theater by themselves. They don't have to bring anything.
Sure.
But if you're a cabaret performer, you have to pay your musicians, you have to rehearse with them and all that. So there are a lot of costs involved in putting together a cabaret show.
Yeah.
So, and also the question is, who really, the audience for the cabaret in New York, 50 years ago, it was a whole different thing. You had clubs everywhere. There are almost no clubs left.
Yeah. Yeah.
So many clubs I played in closed, small places, but fun places.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, maybe they'll return. Maybe.
Yeah, I think there's always a chance. I mean, I always say the talent is there. There's so many talented people out there, but what we need is venues and producers.
Yeah.
And I think there was a time when the film industry sort of scooped up talent from that world.
Oh, wow.
And that became the carrot that's been dangled in front of young cabaret performers ever since. But that carrot actually is made of plastic right now. It doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
So you have to really, it's become a place where people do this for love. Very few people bring it to the next level. And you have to understand what it is what it is.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And you have to do it for love always. It's so important.
Yeah, but it's, of course, I remember one of my very early shows, I was sitting in the dressing room, and the owner came, Sidney Meyer from Don't Tell Mama, one of the first places I performed in.
Yeah.
Who's an absolute sweetheart. And he told me, listen, Daniel, there are only 3 people here. And I freaked out.
Oh.
And he said, but you have to go on and you have to honor every single person in the audience. And one of them was a critic from the New York Post. To be fair, he did not mention that in his pretty good review, so that was nice. But I think I did the whole show like I can't even look at this void. Now I wouldn't have a problem with it. Now it'd be like, all right, you guys sit here in the front. Let's do this. I'm singing just for you tonight.
Yeah, it's so special.
But back then, it hurt.
Of course. Yeah, I mean, we've all been there. That's
part of the lessons you learn, and it's a good lesson.
It is.
It's a good lesson in humility that we all need now and then.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes it's important to perform for no one, just to know you learn more in a sense about
Well,
yourself.
it tells you where you're at and who you are in a way, and
Yeah.
that's painful sometimes, but
Right.
it's like, yeah, it's part of the learning process.
Vulnerable. Yeah.
So, oh, the vulnerability. Oh, there's so much to talk about there.
Yeah.
I
Absolutely.
said in a master class the other day, I said, yes, when you go on stage, you are being judged from the moment the audience sees you.
Uh,
But what is being judged is not you as a person. It's not what you have inside. What you're being judged for is how good you are at your craft. And
mm,
you have to make a distinction. It's not about you
mm,
at all. You are just the instrument up there.
right.
So I think you have to keep that separate to keep your inner life safe. You cannot, what you're exposing is your body, not your inner self.
Right.
It's how you apply your body to what you do on stage.
Mm,
You
mm,
don't expose your soul on stage. It's not healthy. It's not a good idea.
love that. Well,
It's
here's
still coming through because it's you, right?
sure.
But you have shaped it in the creative acts and with the technique
Yeah.
that you develop over the years. But you don't expose your inner personal vulnerability. That's not healthy. It's not a good idea.
Right. Well, we talked about this as I was preparing for Sweeney Todd here in Omaha because it's not a role that you can really draw on personal experiences in a healthy way.
You can't. I mean, that's especially. I mean, if you work in opera, we're talking about grand tragedies,
Yeah.
and what do we have to draw from? I mean, the emotions are all human,
Sure.
but I think you don't want to go down into that darkness to become that character. Some people may like to work this way, but I think there's another way that's saner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let me ask.
And it makes it more fun also, no? I mean, are you having fun? I mean, this is such an amazing role. It's a great
Oh
role
yeah.
for you. I wish
No, I wish you could too. It's fabulous, and I would love to have you there as a mentor because your insights are very much appreciated. But
thank you.
yeah,
Well, I'm sure, I mean, you know this so well. It's the first time you're doing the role, right?
I've done it once before, but
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Well, so I think it's going to fit you like a glove.
it's nice to revisit it. And of course, when you know something already, you can go so much deeper into
Yeah.
what it actually is when you're not worrying about what the words are, and thinking about notes and rhythms. It's really nice to just kind of let it happen to you and go on this ride while
I think that is really also part of the creative process, that you understand the limitations and the frame, and within that set framework you
Mhm.
have all the freedom, because if you don't have the frame, then it's bouncing all over the place.
Yeah.
So that's why I think that this very regimented clarity that you need as a musician, definitely, obviously, you need to know what you're doing at any moment. Once you have that in your preparation set, that's when things are opening up, right?
Yeah, because
Yeah.
you don't have to think about it anymore. It's like second nature. It's fabulous.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it. And I
Wonderful.
think I mentioned to you, Sweeney Todd is a show that made me want to be an actor, made me want to be a singer, made me want to be on Broadway. I saw it, a video of it in high
You
school.
know, what specifically about it was it? Do you remember? Can
Well,
you
it was
voice
unlike
it somehow?
anything I had ever seen. And of course, I was a big Murder, She Wrote fan. So Angela Lansbury was a great, entryway. But it was just unlike anything I had ever seen. And the intensity was so high, and the stakes and the story. And it's a show that you can only experience once and not know
And
what's
the
going to happen.
music. I mean,
Yeah, the
yeah.
music, yeah, it's unbelievable.
But
So
also I think it's an interesting mix of things, right? Because it's also a grotesque, macabre farce.
yes,
Right? Or
yes,
it can be, depending on how it's directed, I suppose. But
yeah.
I think, how old were you when you saw it?
I think 16.
Okay, yeah. Well, of course, that's sort of the Sturm und Drang age, where we
Yeah,
want
it's
extreme
perfect.
things and we
Yeah,
react to them on a visceral level. Like,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. No, my
Awesome.
my family will tell anyone I watched it almost every day for a couple of years. I was really
But
upset.
I totally understand that, because this kind of immersion, I mean, I was just as excessive. For me, it was the magic flute, the Zauberflöte, earlier, because I saw it when I was 7.
Wow.
And that and Godspell, I had those records, and I mean, my parents had them, but they became mine, and that was my childhood soundtrack. And then I performed to it and sang to it, and had my friends. I directed them to. We staged the Zauberflöte in the garden and all that. So excessively listening again and again and again, and I never got bored of it. And I think that's great. The ability to just go deeper and deeper and deeper.
Yeah.
And it can teach you a lot, because in the end, what art really does is it teaches us to pay close attention.
Yeah.
And as a kid, when you hook into this, it makes you do that naturally. And so when we get that, that's why it's so important to be exposed to this early in life.
Yeah, I agree.
Because then you know how to do that.
Yeah. Yep.
And you know, when you work in your rehearsals, this is very high focus and repetition.
Yeah.
And then this is not something new. So discipline. Yeah. I mean, you are extremely disciplined. I can just tell.
Thank you. Thank you. That
Yeah.
means a lot. I appreciate that. Let me ask.
It shows.
What's that?
It shows in your work.
Thank you.
Because you are just, when you're on, you're just on.
Yeah. Well, I feel more comfortable on stage than in real life. So it's easy.
I think you're an extroverted introvert.
Yes.
You know, that kind of thing. That's yeah.
Yeah. It's home. And that's, you know.
Do you have that moment of jumping off the cliff before going on stage when you're in the wings?
It's pretty subdued. I'm always nervous, but it's part of my process. So it's just my body saying like, oh yeah, we're doing this now. Wonderful. Let's, you know, get jittery.
Do you pace? How do you get yourself into that moment? Because everybody has a different.
I stretch and move a lot, and, you know, get in touch with my body, and I wiggle my toes, and you know, just get all my joints going, and yeah,
to be alert. Huh?
Yeah.
I pace. Yeah. I used to just pace, not frantically, but I just had to stay up and move and walk. I could not sit down.
No.
Because then your energy level drops. Some people, they sort of sit and then suddenly they turn on the light, boom.
Yeah.
I don't know how they do that. I think film actors need to know how to do that, because they have to wait for hours in their trailers.
Right.
I admire that a lot.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's quite a different
to not show the fatigue, you know, to just be on, boom, no matter what just happens. That's not easy.
Not at all. But invigorating though, you know, the challenge of that.
Well, I mean, as you said, for you, the stage is sort of your home.
Yeah.
I don't know. For me, I mean, it feels like home, but I don't think that it's so extremely different from the rest of my life. I don't know. I don't think that I'm highly performative, extroverted to that high degree in my daily life. Maybe more when I was younger.
Right.
Also, you know, my last big show was 10 years ago. I mean, I have done a few little things here and there, and I don't say no when it's an interesting project, but the last big show was my Elvis show, and that was in 2011.
Wow. Wow.
So,
well, I have a feeling you'll be back in the saddle.
Well, people always ask me, you have to do the MC in cabaret, and I always say, yes, I'll do it in my 60s, because it shouldn't be young.
Yeah, I agree.
In the way I look at it, because in Berlin, and that was my specialty, the German cabaret from the Weimar era Republic, and I did a lot of material from that era in my shows. No one would have let a youngster be the MC of a cabaret at that time.
Right.
This has to be a seasoned old guy who knows how to take charge, which you don't when you're young. It takes years to have that kind of authority. And he also should be someone who can be as dirty and naughty and vulgar because he can afford it to, and because he needs to, because he's not actually naturally attractive. it has to go against that. Otherwise, it's just, well, you're this hot thing up there, then you don't need to rub it in that much, which is what the role asks for. So that's my take. So in my 60s, 70s, that might be fun, at some point. It's a great role.
Yeah, I will be there. Well, let me ask you, what do you see the future of opera being? Where is this slightly troubled art form going, in your opinion?
I'm trying to be optimistic. I think that it's a mistake to bring in the digital into the live performing arts. I think it's a big mistake because everybody is surrounded by digital work and digital media in their daily lives already. So I think we have to make this clear contrast and to really make them feel the difference that this is an art form that is all about live here and now, and you're breathing the air with us, and you're seeing an image. You're not seeing an image, you're seeing something that is a facsimile of the real as the craft of performing. So I think that's the first thing. So don't bring that in. Trust that it's strong enough on its own. That's one thing. And I think we need more contemporary operas to be written that are listenable.
Yes. Yeah.
That are listenable, so people will want to go back and see it again and see it again and see it again, because I see contemporary operas and it's fine, but do I want to hear it again? No, maybe not. So we are attuned to storytelling and to some level of melodic music that can remain within us, that follows a certain melodic path. That's just how our brain works. So give it to us.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
So I think that's the most important thing, that we need to, I love the classics, and that's perfectly fine, and keep them in there, but mix it up and do more outreach to young people.
I agree. Yeah. Do you see it?
Go ahead.
Do you see it being in larger spaces, or do you see it going into smaller spaces, or both?
I was just going to say, these larger spaces, I'm not surprised they have a hard time, because it's hard to fill a big room.
Yeah.
And also the big rooms, a friend of mine, Christoph Loy, who I consider the best opera director in Europe, he told me, whenever I see American singers, it seems that the training is all geared towards them being able to perform in a big house with a big voice.
Yeah.
So I would love to see, we have seen in New York these tiny productions. I once was an assistant director on a loft opera production. And so there were these independent little groups that said, we're just going to put on an opera, on a shoestring budget. And I applaud that. I think that's great. Yeah. But I think we need something in the middle.
Yeah.
So you have the big, monstrous, big opera house, and then you have these little things. I think a medium-sized theater is really what this art form was developed for. The opera houses in Europe are much smaller. So that's what I would like to see.
Yeah,
because then
Broadway,
it's more immediate. You need to sit close enough to really see the subtlety. I want to see more of the humane subtlety on stage, and not everything blasting big because it's such a big space.
Yeah, and it allows you to connect with the audience more. And it makes me think about,
it's all about that.
Yeah, when Menotti had operas on Broadway, The Medium and Street Scene being on Broadway, and these works that are now considered these big operas, it's like, but they were on Broadway in these smaller houses.
I mean, New York is full of theaters that are not fully used, and I know that the cost for Broadway is crazy. So I have no idea. I don't understand anything about money. I'm not interested in money because I don't have any, and I actually don't really care about money. I do have a certain level of a certain standard of living, but that has been established a long time ago in my life, and it's not going to change.
Right.
But how to finance this kind of work, I have no idea.
Yeah,
I have no idea, but I think that outreach is extremely important, and education.
Yeah, I agree.
To get the audience and to get the next generation of talent who wants to be involved with it. And they need to understand that it is attractive. And it's not about stardom. It's about the work and the humility of the work and the beauty of it.
It's almost like
But
going,
there's a lot of work.
yeah, it's like being a monk or a nun and taking a vow of poverty in a way to be an artist. And if you're kind of saying like, okay, I'm committing to this life.
I mean, you've done Broadway, so you know what it's like to do 8 shows a week and to not have a life.
Right. Yeah.
And all this for, and that's in a way it makes sense when you say that the stage is your home, because that's where you, in a strange way, live your full life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that we need to be grateful that there are people who are willing to do this.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh, I would
So
love.
I bow to everyone who is doing this. The artist for me is the most important, persona in our world.
I agree. Cheers. Well, can I ask you some silly questions?
Please, let's not be serious anymore. It's
Just curious.
terrible.
Okay.
Sorry.
Zodiac sign.
Taurus.
Oof, the bull.
Stubborn with the head through the wall. That's the only thing I know about it, because I don't really pay much attention to it, but apparently there's something to that.
Yeah, sure. Okay, this is a big question for you because you're a pastry chef, but what is your favorite dessert?
Oh, I would say the tarte tatin. That was my birthday cake. That's an upside down caramelized apple cake, but you need to have the right apples, and it needs to be the right kind of pastry, not a puff pastry, but a pâte sucrée, a short crust, not puff pastry. And it needs to be darkly caramelized apples that have a certain tartness and that don't fall apart when you cook them. Good luck finding those. That would be it.
Amazing.
Since I know my pastry, so
I know. Well, that's your favorite to eat, yeah?
Yeah, but although I always prefer to make things than to eat them. But so
Okay.
yeah, it's a bit mix. Yeah. Why?
Is
The
that
next
your
question is
favorite?
what
Is it your favorite to make as well? Like, what is your favorite to make?
whatever I make next.
Yeah. That's
Really,
yeah.
really, because it's about improvising and playing.
Wow.
That's
Wow.
what cooking is for me on baking.
Well, I'm always absolutely stunned by your creations that you share on Instagram.
Oh, my food. Well, that's another part of my life. I wrote
Yeah.
a cookbook, which is not really a cookbook, but a culinary memoir that is an adaptation of the famous Alice B. Toklas cookbook. Yeah, it's a big part of my life.
Yeah.
And it's fine. I love cooking. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Beach or mountains?
Beach.
Yeah, I knew this already.
I miss the mountains though. Part of my life we lived in Munich, so we went skiing all the time. So every now and then I think, oh, it would be nice to have that back in my life. But beach.
Yeah, beach for me as well. Okay, you can have a weekend away with any 3 people who have ever lived. Who are they?
Oh, Liza Minnelli,
Yes.
who is for me the greatest entertainer that pretty much ever lived. And I think it would be great fun to hang out with her, and I have not met her. I also really am very fond of RuPaul, not so much because of the drag, but because he is so smart and funny.
Yeah.
So I think that would be great fun. And then, or maybe someone completely different, like Jean Cocteau or Noel Coward, just to pick their brains. Yeah.
Well,
I guess
that sounds like a great time. Sign me up.
Good combo.
Yeah. That's
That'd be
fabulous. Oh my goodness. All right, you can go back in time to any moment in your life and tell your younger self one thing.
I would go back to myself in pre-teens and tell Daniel, you have these 2 sides. One is completely hysterical and over the top, and the other one is quite at peace and focused and calm and quiet. Pay a little bit more attention to that calm side. I think that's what I would do. Yeah.
Interesting.
Maybe. Yeah.
Was it a wild ride from teens onward for a bit?
No, I was never a wild person, but I think that in this other element of me, there was something slightly forced. And I think I've analyzed pretty well where it came from and all that, but I think it would have been nice to get rid of that or put that a little bit further into the corner earlier in my life. Yeah, because in the end, it's all about finding your center.
Yeah.
I think that's really important. But wild, no, I'm extremely bourgeois and conservative. I really am. I'm not a wild person at all. I love wild people to some degree, unless they're really crazy or dangerous. But that's not my way of living a life. I mean, you can see I like peace. Drama on stage, peace in life.
Yes. It's just interesting to hear because one could look at your life and say how eccentric you have lived it and, performing.
Doesn't feel that way at all.
Yeah, well.
Doesn't feel that way. I mean, sometimes I look back and feel like, I've done some crazy things, but they were not out of control. They were still somewhat contained. And I was never a big party person. I went out to dance, but I was not a big party person. I don't drink. I was never even interested in any kind of drugs. I'm not a promiscuous person. So no, yeah. No, yeah.
Yeah, these wild cabaret acts and, running a museum in your home.
It never really felt that wild to me. It felt kind of organic and fun and I mean, I've done for a brief time drag. That was very interesting. It's not my thing at all. I'm much more androgynous in person than if you put a wig on me. But it was a good lesson to do that. And I've performed with some really fantastic performers who certainly had a much more extreme life or have a more extreme life than me. And I'm friends with them and I admire that. But sometimes I ask myself, I can't believe you're even still alive when I consider what you've gone through.
Sure.
Thank God they are.
Yeah. Well, speaking of being alive, I have one last question for you, and that is, what is the meaning of life?
Purpose. Which almost makes it seem as if I'm, it's the dog biting its tail. But you have to have a purpose, which means responsibility, taking care of something or someone, and to do it with love. I hope that's a good answer, but that's what I would think it is.
Yeah, love that. Well, thank you so much for coming on. This has been a pleasure, as always.
Thank you so much for asking me. It's been so much fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
And toy for your opening.
Thank you very much. I will keep you posted.
Please do. All right, see you soon.
See you soon.
That's all for today's episode. Puppies and rainbows till we meet again.